Hello, Jamie. Thank you again so much for assisting me with this case. There's so much, it's so involved, it's so lengthy, it's so tricky, and as a result, it is very difficult for me to effectively summarize this case. When, going back to why I reached out to you, is I had caught your blog, and in Hibbard, it talks about the willingness and the ability of each parent to facilitate and encourage the continuing relationship between both parents. Um, where I am right now, I have this trial coming up. I don't know what I'm supposed to present. Do I go through the whole case, or it seems like Hibbard is applicable in the sense that the mother has, I have more than enough evidence to demonstrate that she's been a problem, that she is the problem. And rather than go through putting a full blown trial with regard to the people that I have allegedly sexually assaulted, I mean, that's the big question. Um, it's so difficult uh, to go through this case. Um, but let me see if I can summarize it again. Um, just take you through what's happened. If you need to get into my e-file, my username is this, and my password with a capital B. That will get you into the file. What had happened is I had um, filed for divorce um, at, because of adultery. Um, Prior to that, my ex-wife had gone on social media alleging that I was a sexual predator and that I had assaulted several children. And of course, everybody thought I was a pedophile. It was extremely damaging in a lot of different ways. I had filed for divorce. I had the automatic orders uh, were that Lisa, my ex-wife, had couldn't separate me from my daughter. I went to give my daughter a birthday present. I was confronted by her boyfriend and herself. They had threatened to beat me up or kill me. Have um, the gang member, motorcycle guy on the first floor, drag me up and down the street. I have all this on video because I had put my phone in my pocket and I recorded the whole thing. Nobody cared about it. Nobody was interested in it. But as a result, in order to prevent me from seeing my daughter, my ex-wife then had filed a restraining order based upon sexual assault. Um, the judge, we had the hearing. The judge had confronted her. The judge found out that she had never made any complaint to the police or DCF. The judge compelled her to do that. It took her 10 days. She was supposed to do it the same day. Um, as a result, DCF had an investigation. The investigation was supposed to take 45 days. It took 197 days. On page 8 of the report, the caseworker had requested an extension because as the mother has not made herself or her children available for the current assessment. Obviously, if the mother was concerned that this actually had happened, she wouldn't be avoiding DCF. But she was effective. It was effective. She won in that it took an incredible length of time, and that's really what she was after. The result of the findings was um, that they were that the allegations were unsubstantiated. I have attached this to an email, the DCF evaluation, and it's called right down here, 1117 disclosure to Matthew Tagley. So that's that document. after the conclusion of DCF came back unsubstantiated, I had requested a comprehensive evaluation. The person that did the comprehensive evaluation worked for the Family Services Court of Waterbury, and she was an attorney, a very smart and competent lady. She had requested my ex-wife's psychiatric records. My ex-wife was on Social Security for mental health disability, and she was telling the caseworker that it was because she had post-traumatic stress from prison, when in fact it was DID, dissociative identity disorder, otherwise known as multiple personalities. Both myself and my wife's daughter had said that we both knew that she had at least one alter, and that that's why she was on Social Security or mental health disability. And the attorney had requested this. She had requested it several times, and Lisa, my ex-wife, wouldn't produce it. So the officer petitioned the court to order it. It was ordered, and she was stalling with regard to producing those records. At that point, the head of the Family Services came to me and says, "Look, why don't if you this is going to take a long time," he said, "but why don't we suspend the comprehensive evaluation and let's go for reunification. You'll see your daughter much quicker." And I agreed. And what I did is I had said, look, I'll agree, but if this fails, I want to be able to continue with the comprehensive evaluation. And in the meantime, I want her to produce her psychiatric records. So that was the agreement. What happened is that the therapy failed, and when I came back from the 7-month therapy, the judge flipped out. What is this case doing here? Why is it taking so long? And seeing that the court was in this distress, my ex-wife saw the opportunity and had said that the psychiatric records were 10 years old, and making all these false claims, and that I was asking for them. I wasn't the one that was asking for them. It was the court that was asking for them. I just didn't want to stall. She was supposed to have produced this. She still didn't produce it. The judge freaked out. She admonished me. I couldn't even open my mouth without the judge sticking her foot in it. And so that's when I lost custody of my daughter. It was very confusing. The judge just took our agreement and just threw it out the window. So that's what happened there. Going back to the first reunification therapy, just to sort of briefly explain what happened there. The therapist was, I would say, 28, 30 years old, had no understanding of what parental alienation is, had no understanding of what she was treating. She had 4 inches of pink at the end of her hair. She had dyed the last 4 inches of her hair pink. When we first started to go to therapy, I would go to therapy, Elizabeth would go to therapy, and we would write letters back and forth. So we were meeting every week. Very quickly, we went from meeting every other week to meeting every week to meeting every other week. So when Lisa wouldn't show up, it wasn't that I would miss a week. I was missing, like 1 month, because now we're only meeting once a month. So this is August 22nd. I had asked if Elizabeth had shown up to therapy. The therapist says Elizabeth was not able to make her appointment this week. That was August 22nd of 2016. October 21st. Hello, Elizabeth. That's the therapist. I was just wondering if my daughter had shown up for counseling. They canceled this week due to parent-teacher conferences. Unfortunately, I had no other availability. Did my daughter show up for therapy November 4th? Elizabeth did not come in yesterday as her mother was not feeling well. Did my daughter show up this weekend? We were unable to coordinate a time this weekend, although she did come into therapy on November 10th. Just wondering if she showed up for counseling. They did not come in and did not return my messages. That's December 2nd. So at this point, I requested her schedule or her attendance. The therapist says there is no official attendance. Now, the therapist knows this is court ordered. I believe they have missed 2 appointments since May. Then I request the bills. I don't believe we keep individual records after the bills has been paid. As far as going to my insurance company, the therapist knows that it's on Husky and that I don't have access to those records. This is January 19th. Just wondering if she showed up. Elizabeth's appointment was rescheduled for today. So what happens is, as the therapist is feeling the pressure, she all of a sudden has a breakthrough with Elizabeth, and Elizabeth and I are going to sit down together. And it doesn't make any sense because at first, when the therapy began, we were writing letters back and forth. Now, at this point, my daughter is so alienated, she doesn't even want to discuss me or talk about me, and the therapist has had this breakthrough, and we're supposed to meet. So on the way to see my daughter, and again, imagine you haven't seen your daughter for 3.5 years, what that would feel like as a parent. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way Lisa's going to let me see my daughter, our daughter. There's just no way. So as I'm on the way, I write I email the therapist, and you can't see it up in the corner up here, but the subject is urgent. And so I say, I'm just confirming that I'll be there at 5:15. The therapist says, hi, I have let her mother know in order to prepare her. I haven't heard anything. So what happens is the therapist is emailing her, and she gets a response. Urgent, she writes me back. Sorry, I just got a message saying her appointment today needs to be rescheduled. They have band practice, rehearsal for band concert. So, I mean, as a result, I file a motion for contempt. The therapist authors a letter on behalf of Lisa that Elizabeth has consistently participated in individual therapy sessions. The therapist also writes, Elizabeth has continued to refuse visitation with her father, has not wanted to write him, and has asked I guess that's the word that she's saying, and has asked that we stop discussing him or their relationship. So when we begin the therapy, we're writing letters, and by the end of the therapy, she doesn't want to discuss me or anything like this. Now, the reality of reunification therapy, which I have learned and which has been confirmed by the few true experts, say reunification therapy is a disaster, and that it oftentimes or almost all the times makes the situation worse. And if you think about it, when a child loses a parent, the normal reaction is grief and loss. But in this case, when Elizabeth loses me, what's her reaction? Anger and resentment, all of which comes from the mother. The child has to reject the targeted parent in order to be accepted by the alienating parent. So when my daughter has this so-called anxiety. What you're talking about is that, it's the anger and resentment. When the therapist validates my daughter's feelings, she's validating the feelings of anger and resentment. So in essence, she's doubling down on my wife's child abuse. So this is the end result. The therapist is very upset. She says that she can't be, after 7 months, that she can't be Elizabeth's therapist and be the reunification therapist. So she boots the case, and we're off to Southern Connecticut University. From here, we went to Connecticut State University. The plan was that they were going to have me upstairs and Elizabeth downstairs, and we were going to correspond by letters. That never happened. In fact, Elizabeth was so difficult that they actually canceled me for an entire month. Now, these were college students, and there were supervisors. There were about 8 different college students that ultimately worked on this case, and about 4 supervisors. I had tried to explain to them that this was a case of parental alienation, but not even the supervisors seemed that they could understand that. As a result, Lisa, as you can see, the first on 4/8/17, she didn't show up. Then I was supposed to meet Elizabeth on 5/6, but obviously Elizabeth was so hostile that that wasn't possible. And that's when they canceled on me and said that they needed to work with Elizabeth for a while. Lisa then canceled 5/13, 5/20. Then the clinic was closed. She didn't show up on 6/3, and then Elizabeth and her showed up on 6/10, and then on 7/8 there was a misunderstanding by me that I was supposed to be there. When they called me and said, "Where are you?" You can see it in the bottom of the report there. I just ran over there and tried to get them not to close it, but it was useless. It wasn't going to work. If you look at the highlight that I have there, Elizabeth's individual therapist, in the process of addressing the presenting problem as it relates to Elizabeth's unwilling to have supervised visits with Mr. Tagley. During an individual session on 6/10, Miss Martinez reported to the therapist that she was unwilling to trust the process and move forward with supervised visitations. So again, her stonewalling. I have included this in as a attachment. That's Southern Connecticut. That's the attachment. At this point, I have an attorney, Christopher Goulden. He decides, after Southern Connecticut fails, that we should get the therapists together, that I should get a therapist, Lisa should get a therapist, and of course my daughter's therapist should all get together and figure out why reunification is impossible. I mean, this is so basic. So anyway, we go forward with that, and a month later, after we make this plan, my attorney has to ask for a continuance. So now it's 2 months later, 2 weeks before we are supposed to report to Family Services about what the therapist's conclusion that they came to. I get my therapist to reach out to the other therapists, and they know nothing about it. So after 2 months, I find out that Lisa never told her therapist, never told my daughter's therapist, and I actually got blamed for it because when I had called the court to talk to Family Services, they said I was responsible for notifying them. I said, I have no contact with my daughter. I have no contact with my ex-wife. they were told that they were supposed to do this. How is it that I'm responsible for this? It's just the insanity never stopped. Um, at this, there were other things that happened as well. So at that point, I'm paying a lot of money to this attorney. I had suggested to him that we do a psychological evaluation, and he didn't think that was the thing to do. And I just said, thank you. I'll do this myself. I petitioned the court for a psychological evaluation, which is, terribly expensive. I said I'd pay for it myself. The court said, well, do you just want to do your daughter? I said, no, 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 no. Please, I have to do everybody. Myself, my daughter, and my ex-wife. Anyway, this is the conclusion of the psych eval. It's attached as a psych eval doc. Unfortunately, I don't have these documents in electronic form, so I put it in a Word document. Without going into depth about the conclusion, by the way, this is the Children's Law Center of Connecticut. The guardian ad litem, or the GAL, is Artilla Labonia. Right there. She really has no idea actually what parent alienation is. She's not a bad woman. What happened, let me see if I can get back to... After the psych eval was done, we reported back, and when the judge found out that this was a case of parental alienation, she really flipped out on my wife and said that she guarantees if we went forward with the trial that she would lose custody. And she spent a lot of time hammering my ex-wife. Both myself and the guardian ad litem was pretty shocked about to what extent the judge went through to. So the judge said, I want you guys to come to an agreement. So we left the courtroom, went right across the hall to a conference room, and my ex-wife had informed myself and the guardian ad litem that Elizabeth just had a breakthrough and was willing to talk to me, if you could imagine. So what at that point, what I did is I presented... and I wasn't ready because I had no idea the judge was going to give me this opportunity. I presented an intervention by this therapeutic vacation, she calls it, Linda Goblet. Now, you had mentioned something about family bridges, and that's by Dr. Richard Warshak out in California. These programs are very similar. They both know each other. They both have the same output data. They succeed at nearly 100% as long as the criteria to the program is met. And it's very lengthy, but Linda is one of the few experts. She gets nothing wrong. She is 100% competent. And unfortunately, this is for the therapeutic, the description of the program is very lengthy. It's actually 14 pages. I'll attach this as well. But this is somebody that has total command. So I presented this to the guardian ad litem and my ex-wife, and we had agreed to meet. Now, again, consistent with the way things go, I said, let's meet next week. Lisa said she couldn't, and she had doctor's appointments. I mean, she is a stay-at-home, doesn't work mother. So that became a month and a half. And we finally agreed. The guardian ad litem wanted us to meet with her. I guess they have a social worker on staff. Her name is Nicole. Let me see if I can find her. This is Nicole here. Very nice girl. Very sensitive. So we agreed to finally meet in their office. I got there an hour early. We waited for Lisa. She never showed up. She then lied to the guardian ad litem about getting an attorney. The guardian ad litem caught her in the lie, reported it to the judge the next time we went back. The judge got furious with Lisa. Said, I'm putting this down for a trial and don't think you're going to play this. I'm getting an attorney at the last second with me. And so here we are. I really feel it's important to get the judge to order the program. There's a lot of things about the program that Lisa has to comply with. Lisa will only respond to real force, so it's involved. I just can't imagine if the judge orders it that Lisa will comply if there aren't real consequences. If you read the 14 pages, you'd see how the therapist positions herself by holding the custody over the alienating parent's head. It's very smart. But I'm really concerned that even if I was to win custody, I don't really win because my ex-wife has poison-pilled my daughter to an extreme degree. So getting into the program is a really important thing, and my biggest fear is getting her there. The therapist, Linda, talks about that, but we could talk about that as well. Again, thank you so much for listening to this, and I hope to speak to you soon. Thanks again.